enjoy your tea and coffee. We're back. I'm glad to see you back again. And it's really, like I said, there's a New Horizons, St Anne's, and I've really enjoyed that first bit. And we're going to have a little bit more, aren't we? So this is the David Icke Wembley Lecture of the North, really, isn't it? My daughter actually tells me that she's not into any of the subjects we talk about, and her catchphrase is, when I start to mention anything, even if it's something nothing David Icke has talked about, she says, "Oh, Dad, I'm not in the mood for a David Icke lecture now." Because she reckons I sound like David Icke, alright, so you might think I do too. But I don't sound like David Icke, and if you think I do, then it's just a coincidence, nothing to worry about. But on the subject of coincidence, I should say a bit more about that, because I think it's a subject, if I've got time, I'll go into in a minute. But I should complete the story about my dismissal from the NHS hospital portering service first. Now, as I ended the first part of this talk explaining how I got sacked and about what's happened since. Now, an obvious kind of question would be, well, do I want to take legal action against my former employers? Because, as I said, I believe the case against me was bogus. I think I've got very good reason for thinking that. And the truth is, I have actually tried to take legal action, and I'm not going to give up on that. I'm going to keep trying. And what happened was, I've approached several industrial solicitors about this, and unfortunately, I haven't managed to find one who will take my case. Now, I spoke to one guy, and he said, "Look, Ben, I'm not taking a case. I'm not going to go to court with what you've just given me." And I started to argue with him, and he says, look, cut me off, Ben. If you ask me privately, I agree with you. I bet my right arm, privately, that you've been set up. This is a bogus case. They are fraudulent, because it's not unfair dismissal I'm doing them for, okay? It's fraud. It's a fraudulent breach of contract. It says they are fraudulent. They have concocted a false case to get rid of you. But without direct evidence, I can't take this to court. And that is the problem. It's the difference between circumstantial evidence and direct evidence. And that's a very important subject, really, to talk about. Now, so what's happened, basically, I'll talk about that more in a minute, but basically what's happened since then is I'm still working on that. I'm not going to give up. I'm just hoping that I'll come across some kind of breakthrough in this. And I think the best way to do that is to continue to try to expose this secret policy, which is what it is. If you read Kevin Annett's book, Unrepentant, which is based on a film of the same name which he made, he relates his own experience of being defrocked from the United Church of Canada, because he was speaking out about the fact that the church was attempting acts of genocide against the Canadian Red Indians. The story of his dismissal matches mine almost exactly. He was called into the bishop's office. "Kevin, we've had complaints about you." You know, and all these people have said complaints. And they went through this process where they build these complaint upon complaint. They spend an awful lot of money to make an awful lot of efforts, far more than anything that Kevin ever wanted for charitable works at the church, which the actual diocese always refused to pay for these various charitable things that Kevin did, but they spent 10 times that amount of money getting rid of him. There is a secret policy in place. That's the conclusion of this. Now, it seems to be that anyone, especially if you're taking the Queen's shilling, is vulnerable. And that could be, many people in this room could be vulnerable. As I said, I've been contacted by a lady who doesn't want to be named, who works in the public leisure industry, who's been sacked from her job in mysterious circumstances after she organised a conference on paranormal and conspiratorial issues in Scotland. This could happen to you, any of you. I've spoken to several people, I've spoken to several people in the break who've had this has happened to them, or something similar has happened to them. If it's a secret policy and it's not written down anywhere, It's something that is implemented through fifth column shadow organisations like Common Purpose. And there may be other outfits that are part of this that we haven't yet detected. But there's various organisations. It's very possible in a world where there's lots and lots of people who will do whatever authorities tell them to do. You only need a handful of your people working in various strategic points in society to control everything. So I think the best thing I can do, I will continue to speak to legal representatives and other experts on this matter, but I think my best course of action is to expose this secret policy. Because when that's exposed, what happened to me will be exposed. So let's stick together, look after each other. If this happens to you, get in touch with me straight away. You can speak to me anonymously or publicly, it's up to you.
Why didn't you use the union?
Well, I have done, I've explained it. Yeah, I've used the union. Unfortunately, I'm not a member of the union now. I did use them when I was in there. I mean, someone came to me during the break and said that I made a mistake in that department, and if that's the case, then that's possible, if that's the case, then...
What union were you in?
Unison.
Well, that's one of the biggest trade unions in this country. I cannot understand why you haven't had the representation that you deserve.
Yeah, that's something I could look into. I mean, that is, because someone had been... I think
that is terrible.
You and another man were saying that...
that union has got huge resources, huge.
They could have got a solicitor in.
We have shown there, I cannot believe that you never had the representation that you should.
Yeah. There's a gentleman there who wants to say something.
What happened to your appeal?
Right, yeah, we had an appeal here, and I have to apologise. I had an appeal hearing which I didn't turn up to. I went through a period of where I was very emotionally low, and I didn't go to the appeal hearing. There's no excuse. I should have done. I should have gone in there and continued the fight, but.
Do you think that's why the solicitors won't touch it?
No, they said it wasn't necessary because basically the appeal hearing was the conditions of the appeal hearing were basically it would just simply be a repeat of the actual dismissal hearing, of the disciplinary hearing.
So if they put the book, you said it was the trust board that actually conducted the discipline. Where would it have gone? Who would have done the appeal?
It would have been different officers. You can't have the same officers at an appeal, but it would have been basically. It would have been. I mean, they did say I made a mistake, and I freely admit that I should have gone along, but I was basically at a point where it was good. A point where I was very emotionally low, and I was very, very. I was in a bad way, sort of like mentally, I suppose, and I didn't. Hello.
I think you're on a bit of a sticky wicket. If I remember from like whistleblowing for procedures in nursing and that, there's always a protection around the person who's making a complaint, so that it's all anonymous, and you're never allowed to face that person. And I can understand it a bit because that might prevent, if they think they're going to take the flak of facing somebody, it might prevent someone else from making a complaint that's really valid. Well, there has to be some safeguard because anybody can write anything down and say that was a complaint from so-and-so where it just might not have been.
Yeah.
You can't do anything about it because you're not facing that person and saying,
Exactly.
come on, let's have an honest discussion here. What's it? That person's protected. You're the innocent party and you're not protected.
Yeah, well, the person, an anonymous, they will take anonymous. I read through it's absolutely true. I read through the disciplinary handbook. This was a member of the public who made a complaint. They will take complaints from anonymous sources, members of the public and anyone, and they said they can investigate based on this. There's no, basically the source of the action against me was their investigation, not the complaint itself, so they said. But the complaint sparked an investigation, I'm going to have to proceed. Can I take questions in the end? Because I'm just going to proceed with something else now. Okay, but I'll answer all your questions in a minute. The difference I should point out the difference between direct evidence and circumstantial evidence is, I'm going to go slightly off on a tangent here, all right, but the difference is very, very crucial because it applies to an awful lot of the subjects we talk about, including what I've spoken about tonight, and that is direct evidence would be that some kind of document came to light that proved somebody in the Department of Health ordered the trust board to get rid of me. Circumstantial evidence is when something extremely unlikely happens that it seems common sense to assume that that's not just chance, but when you can always use the coincidence get-out clause, as I was explaining before, and I brought this up at a conference when I was speaking to somebody about this. Now, Brian Halliwell has spoken about this too, and that is synchronicity, the nature of synchronicity. Something extremely unlikely happens. Now, one of the examples Brian has given in his speech, because he talks a lot about Carl Jung, who was a psychologist who came up with this idea. But there's a man in the First World War who's on a troop ship in the army off the coast of France. The ship was sunk. He managed to escape in a lifeboat. But he didn't have time to pack his kit. Everyone had to leave their kit behind. Many years later, after the war, he moved to the United States, settled there in New York, and he was walking along the beach, just watching the tide, sweep in and out, bringing in all sorts of seaweed and other detritus, and he spots a little shaving brush lying on the beach. He reaches down, picks it up. It's a standard British Army issued shaving brush. Now, it's got a name carved on it because the men all used to carve their names on every piece of kit they had to stop kit pilfering. He looks down and he reads his own name. He remembered carving it on this brush all those years ago. It's his shaving brush. It must have floated from that shipwreck, found its way right across the Atlantic Ocean, and landed at his, basically, at the very moment he was walking on the beach, he gets swept up right by his feet. Now, when you get into the realm of statistics, the odds of that happening when you consider all the factors, the distance he had to travel, the place where it landed, the fact that he was there at the right moment, the odds against it are astronomical. And Carl Jung thought these things were more than just coincidence. He thought there was some kind of force in operation in this universe making these things happen. The problem with that is that when you get into statistics, it's nothing is so unlikely that it can never happen. You can't prove that that wasn't coincidence. That's the problem. And I brought this subject up at the ASAP conference because someone was talking about the nature of chance. I gave the example of a book that I think Brian has read, and I've read it recently as well. I can't remember the title, that's the problem. It was Coincidence Plus or something like that. I can't remember the title. Brian will know if you speak to him. But the end of this book is a fictional account of a man who wins the national lottery 5 weeks in a row. And as I explained in the first part, there's a police investigation. He's arrested because they think this guy's got to be cheating. He's fiddling with the machines. He's finding some way to rig the national lottery so he keeps winning. They can't find any evidence that he's done so. And so he hires the best lawyer, as I said, because obviously he's very rich now. They take him to court. When he's asked to present his defence, he's given his witness, he stands up and he says, "Your Honour, I'm just a very lucky guy." And they have to acquit him. He was acquitted of the charges. There's no other choice because it is possible that was just chance. I mean, every punter who plays a lottery has a 13 million to 1 chance of hitting the jackpot. Right? If you hit the jackpot one week, you play again, your odds don't diminish. The chances of you winning are not less because you won the week before. They're the same. And the same if you win again 2 weeks in a row, and the odds of winning twice in a row are 13 million to 1 square or something like that, or even more, I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of inverse square law or something complicated like that. You win 3 weeks in a row, again. You might have won 2 weeks before, but when you buy another ticket, you've got just as much chance of winning as any other punter. Now, so what you've got to do is, if you ever get confronted by a skeptic, and he boxes you into a corner and starts saying, "This is coincidence, that is coincidence," Andy Roberts has written a book called UFO Down, which is a sceptical look at the Bedouin Mountains UFO incident, which took place in January 1974 in Wales. And he basically was saying that two very unlikely things happened at the very same time. One of these is something called a bolide meteor, which is a very, very bright shooting star that lingers in the sky for a very long time. Very, very rare to see those particular things. Another thing that's very rare in northeast Wales are earthquakes. The Llandrillo, the town near where this alleged UFO crashed, was hit by a very, very large earthquake at the very moment that this bolide meteor passed overhead. Or within a few minutes. There was a few minutes between them. Now, on their own, those two things would be incredibly unlikely. Put the two together, and it's again, you just have to square the odds. How often does an earthquake occur in northeast Wales so powerful that it knocks glasses off the shelves in a pub? These two things happen at the same time. You have to add other things on, like eyewitness testimony of various strange objects on the ground and in the sky. But leaving aside that, Roberts' hypothesis in his book is that it was a coincidence. He says it's very unlikely, but it happens. Unlikely things do happen. And people think that it's so unlikely, people think there's some kind of agency involved. That's what he says, but this is quoting now. Because these things seem so weird, but they're not, they just happen. Well, in that case, and I brought this subject up at the ASAP conference, you have to draw it on a graph, okay? You have to have a line like that. It's a statistical line of uncertainty. So here you have, say, 14 to 1 against, okay, 1,000 to 1 against, 2,000 to 1 against, and so on to billions to 1 against. Because I brought that story up with a skeptic friend of mine. I brought up the story of the guy who won the lottery 5 weeks in a row, and he said, would you call that coincidence? And I mentioned this at the ASAP conference too to the speaker whose name I can't remember. Would you say that was coincidence? Do you think the police were reasonable to arrest that man and investigate? And he says, of course. How can you possibly, winning the lottery 5 weeks in a row, that's incredibly unlikely. It's obviously suspicious. I say, okay then. So where's the cut-off line? You have to have a cut-off line between the others that everyone agrees on. And anything above that line you have to take seriously. Anything below it, you don't have to take seriously. And once that's settled, then we won't have any more of this nonsense. Because the chances of a bolide meteor and a massive earthquake hitting northeast Wales at the same time lie above that line. So Andy Roberts can't use the coincidence get out of jail free card. And then the same could apply to my case at work. 23 years, trouble-free service, no problems at all. Add in the very mysterious breach of normal procedure. Add in the fact that so many people already knew I was doing Hapanlo anyway, in management at the hospital. Is it above or below that line? We don't know, because we don't agree where that line is. And so this is, I think it's an interesting field of research. See if we can get some skeptics around to agree, to think about that and agree where that line might be, where to place it. Now, as I was saying before, you might be wondering how, what I'm doing here right now, what process led me here? And it's not just what happened to me at work, because I've been through my life, as all of us have. We all have a story about how we got involved in this subject. So I'm going to go off on another little tangent here and explain a little bit about the kind of things that happened to me Other things have happened to me that are suspicious and strange. There's been several periods, times in my life when I have seen strange phenomena, such as ghosts, UFOs, whatever you call them. I'm not as impressive as some of the stories you've heard, but through my life, odd periods, strange things have happened to me. One of those was I was sitting in a park early on a January morning. This is when I was a kid at school. Freezing cold, fog outside. I was sitting in the rec area by the swings. And the reason I was doing that was because it was very early in the morning and I was going jogging with my girlfriend at the time, who was into jogging in the early morning, come rain or shine, usually rain. And I was going with her. Believe me, nothing else would get me out at 5 in the morning jogging, I can tell you. No way. I was sitting on this bench in the rec, and I heard a noise behind me over my left shoulder. 3 horses walked through the park, and this is near central Oxford. They walked through the park behind me. They came past me. There was nobody with them. They had no bridle or saddle on. They were on their own, and they walked out the park gate and down the road, which a couple of hours later would be very busy. And then I noticed there was something strange about them. They didn't look like normal horses. They didn't look solid. They looked like their bodies were made out of smoke that kept its shape. They were translucent. Could have been in my head, but Jenny, my girlfriend, turned up a few minutes later. She saw them too. She said, "What's that?" And she was very shocked. I wasn't terribly frightened, she was. And she refused to discuss it with me again. And a week later, she ended our relationship. So, I'm one of the few blokes in the world who's been dumped because of a ghost. Claim to fame there, I think. They're just 3 little horses like that, you know. Sorry. I'm not a Neil Haig. They just look like that, just walking in a row. They look more like wolves. Oh dear. That's what I saw. Hello, yeah.
Was it near the Butley?
No, this was at South Park. You know, it's just south of Headington, you know?
Yeah, I know the area. Myself.
Yeah, it's a big park in central Oxford, or quite close to central Oxford.
Is it what's called it's about Magdalen Bridge, isn't it?
No, it's up the top by Warford Lane, where the wreck is at the top. That's where it happened. But I mean, other things like this have happened when I was older. When I was working, I was in portering then. I woke up one morning, just woke up out of sleep in my bed, looked over my bed. There was a little boy kneeling on the floor in my bedroom, and he was just kneeling. He was like this. I won't try to draw him. Don't worry. He was just like that. He was kneeling down on the floor like this, as if he was saying his prayers like that. And he was like the horses. He looked like he could see through him. He was translucent. He wasn't solid. He looked like he was made out of smoke. And he started to lift into the air as I watched him. And I wasn't frightened. I was just thinking, that's strange. And he just started to levitate into the air. And as he did, he turned and looked at me like that. And our eyes met. And then he just slowly faded away. And I just think, oh, fancy that. And I didn't think much more about it. I was wide awake, you know, but I sat and thought about it for an hour or so, and then I just went and read, you know, put the light on, read a book, and went back to sleep. And it was only a little while after that, I came to realise, I think I wasn't sort of like a conspiratorially aware at that time. It was a few years later I understood that there are political issues associated with these phenomena. The same goes for UFOs. I mean, that's a big subject, but I saw a little spherical or circular white object in the sky once. It didn't move with the wind. Now, there are political issues associated with these phenomena. The government, you see, I found out the government have a relationship with these phenomena. And what's more, they're very, very keen to manage our perceptions of them, for whatever reason. There's probably several reasons. But the way we see these phenomena, the way we interact with them, the governments are very, very interested in that. Now, I started reading an awful lot of books on this subject. I read all Timothy Good's books. I read David Icke. That was a big influence on me. Big influence on me, that was, David Icke. And 9/11 happened, and I didn't immediately think inside job. I didn't think that straight away. It took me a few months to process what had happened and to investigate before I understood that's what it was. And then in 2005, something else happened which is very, very important. And it was a very, very big, it all leads up to what happened to me eventually at work. Everything all leads up. It's a timeline passing through everything that happened to me at work. Me going to the pro conferences, me getting sacked, me ending up talking to you. I've got a daughter. Now she's nearly 18 now. She's a drama student at college. But when she was 10 years old, she was living with me, and I was living. What happened was we had some problems with the social services, and it's a big long story. But basically, I was living in a home with her and my ex-partner, her mother. I'm a single father. I split up from my daughter's mother when she was a year old. My daughter Louisa came home and said, "Oh, Dad, the school are going to take our fingerprints." I thought, what? My 10-year-old daughter standing in front of me saying, "Yeah, it's in the newsletter. Haven't you read it?" And I said, "No." So I cursed myself. I should have read it. Teach me for not reading the damn school newsletter. Anyway, I did. I picked up the newsletter, thumbed through it, and there it was, on the back page, little column there, little box at the bottom saying that the school will be taking the fingerprints of all the children for the purposes of setting up a library database, so to dispense with the system, the conventional system of cards and stamps. Basically what this meant was that the children borrowing books from the library and returning them would have to put their finger or thumb on a scanner. And I was gobsmacked. This is a school where if they take you out of the class, if they take the kids for a walk down the road to the local park, they have to get your permission. You have to fill out a form, you have to fill out a slip. So I phoned up the school and I said, I managed to get through to the headmistress. And I said, "What the hell's going on? You're going to do this? You weren't going to ask her permission?" She said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Emlyn-Jones, I don't know anything about this." Which I thought was a bit odd, seeing as she's the headmistress of the school. And she said, "Look, I'll have a look and I'll get back to you as soon as I've found out." Well, guess what? She never called me back. And I kept phoning. In the end, I phoned her back and she wouldn't take my call. She was always out or busy. A few days after that, the librarian called me. This headmistress had fobbed me off on the librarian. She said, "Don't worry, Mr. Emlyn-Jones. It's a database that's only going to be used within the library. It's not going to be used anywhere else, we promise you. And it doesn't take the whole fingerprint of the child, it just takes one little segment of the child's fingerprint." And I thought, but that's not the point. The point of the matter is that once the database is created, it can be used for anything you like. It can be expanded into other areas. I think when it comes to the big brother and database state, you have to deal with capabilities, not professed intents. We know that the intents of the people bringing in the big brother state are malevolent. They say they're doing it for good reasons. We mustn't believe them. This goes back to the comedy film I made, which cost me my job, the Microchip and Muslim Day video. And another problem is, that it's getting the children psychologically conditioned and culturally conditioned to the database state, to the practice of putting your fingerprints on things, to do anything. And once this database is created, they can make you use your fingerprints to buy things from shops, to open your front door, anything. The computer power is there. And it can be a stepping stone towards electronic implants inside your body, which not only is an invasion of your privacy, and it can mean you can be tracked, but these have capabilities of controlling your thoughts and your feelings, some of them. And I basically said, you know, we adults, we remember a world when this wasn't around. Like Winston Smith in 1984, our memories are part of what keeps our mind free. We remember things. Winston Smith used to remember things like nursery rhymes, you know, when he's a kid, and we remember things before this all happened. And that keeps us. Children growing up in this state won't know anything different. They'll be born and will have been raised where this is normal. And the school is helping do that. I was absolutely, really furious. The headmistress still refused to speak to me, so in the end I wrote to her. I wrote to her and I said, "Dear Mrs. You know, I'm writing to you to inform you that I'm withholding permission for any biometric data to be taken from Louisa. If any member of staff attempts this, I've instructed her to refuse and refer the staff member to me." And I took it in by hand and I put it in a desk to make sure it arrived. And this, a lot of other people have had similar experiences, I think. There's a lot of talk about fingerprinting in schools, how the schools are going to enormous lengths to sort of like to get their kids on the fingerprint database. They say, "We'll just take your fingerprint as part of a game," things like that. So that's another process. It's another thing that sort of like affected me over the last few years. That has been an enormous influence on my life and has led up to this situation. So where we're going to go from here, I don't know, because like a lot of people are sort of losing heart. I mean, they say that the 2012 thing was an anticlimax. That's a big subject, but something big was supposed to happen on 21st of December 2012, and nothing's happened. I mean, it's possible, you know, that there's still that the effect there may be a delay in the effect of that. I'm not sure, but to be honest, I'm not sure what the future is, because I don't make long-term plans, because so much of what's going on in this world today is unpredictable. I think I deal with each day as it comes, or each week as it comes. I travel around, I meet people like you. I try to sort of work things out and things like that. Sure, yeah.
Because I think you hit the nail on the head there, because, I mean, I agree that there is a malevolent force out there that is trying to stop people from evolving, right? And you said yourself that poetry had lost its passion almost for you because the whole culture's being destroyed, the camaraderie and everything.
Yeah.
And I think even David Icke agrees that although, yes, there are things going on and we acknowledge that, there's also the fact that really we're one consciousness and there's only you here, there's only, you know, so we're creating our own reality. So perhaps you created that to get yourself out of. And whilst there is still something you can fight, you can make people aware, that is perhaps your job now.
Could be. I mean,
just speak eloquently about it.
It's absolutely. I mean, I think that you're right. The high level. I think that the highest level of this conspiracy is spiritual. It's about spirituality.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, and that, in a sense, is the biggest secret. And you know that this is the thing they've kept from us. As David puts it very well. I can hardly repeat what he says about us being infinite consciousness, experiencing itself subjectively. And the government they want us to know, they want us to think we're just these individual little units of helpless playthings of random chance. But I've often find that my state of mind directly has an impact on what goes on around me. I find if I'm annoyed, I'm angry, I get some people giving a go at me. I've had some very, very, very intense experiences like that, you know. One moment, mate. And For instance, I got very angry with a friend of mine once. I poured a can of beer over his head. I lost my temper. I walked off around the corner. I've walked down this road 100 times before. Less than a minute later, someone came out of a garden and punched me in the face. And I can't help thinking those two. It was my anger, my own rage, and God brought this person. In a sense, it created that situation. I think you're absolutely right there. It's a big subject, but I think that you make a very good point. At the highest level, we've got to think. I mean, I'm a very much a down-to-earth, facts, evidence, politics, science-based man, but I'm also spiritual as well. I think that's an issue we've got to both together. Yeah.
Doesn't David Icke talks about that in his book about don't the Illuminati is one name for the malignant force. What to keep us left brain orientated. So you say hard facts, evidence, etc. That sort of left brain masculine, not only denies our spirituality, which is the female side, and that's the way the world has been run. He says the world has been run for thousands of years on the lines of masculine orientated brute force of facts, denying spirituality and subordinating the spirituality and feminine energy in the world. So that's why we have it. That is what the dark powers and their objective as a way to end this.
Yes. There's no doubt about it that they are trying to turn us into what David calls left-brain prisoners. That is.
We have been for thousands of years, though.
Yeah, and I've spoken mostly about left-brain things this evening, but I don't want to think that I am one of these people who I think you have to deal with that side of things, but you have to balance it. In fact, you can only find the true answers to the left-brain stuff with the balance of the right brain, with the intuitive, holistic analysis. Now, there's a guy called Ian McGilchrist, very interesting man who's written an awful lot about this. I do recommend you check out Ian McGilchrist. You're absolutely right. Now, what they do is, I mean, the Illuminati are very clever. I mean, they understand that we have natural spiritual instincts. So they understand that if they can't create a world which is purely logical and then it's just say, right, you humans, there's nothing but logic, because they know that we're going to have these natural spiritual instincts are going to break through. But when they break through, where do most people go? The local church, or the mosque, or the temple, or one of these organised religions. And if you look into it, the Illuminati control those as well. The Illuminati, they've been created by the same secret society network that create the rest of it, the other things. So in a sense, you're absolutely right what you're saying, but for people who break out of that, there's another trap for them just waiting around the corner. And they've even moved into the New Age. I mean, there's a big subject. I mean, Neil Sanders talked about this a lot, that the New Age itself is also created, the hippie movement and that. Some of it, at least, is a part of that as well. Anyone, any other questions?
Yeah. There is nothing you've ever experienced or will ever experience that you haven't co-created.
That's right, Dex. Yeah, I think,
It's that simple.
I think it's
You don't have to get a brain hemorrhage trying to figure things out. That is who you are. You came here to co-create so you can evolve through those creations.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think you've got a good point there. I mean, obviously, if something bad happens to me, I don't sort of like go into a guilt trip about what I've done to myself, but I do sort of like try and see it that way. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Gentleman there.
About the website that you've got a panel of, your ex-employer, what content exactly did they ask you to remove?
There's a list of things. It's actually on the website. I provide a full list.
Did you remove it?
No. I was explaining. I did consider doing that, but the problem was I had to make a decision whether to trust them or not. They asked me to remove. First, they asked me to remove a few items. The items that were in the email. It was open-ended, and they said we want you to ask. They didn't offer me a deal. They didn't say you remove these and we'll drop these allegations. They didn't do that. They said could you remove these, please? And I had to choose whether to or not, whether to trust them or not. Now, for better or worse, I chose not to, and I look back and I think that was the correct decision. I can never prove that, but...
Can we still see those things now?
Yes, they're all up there.
What is the
It's Hapanwo, HPANWO.blogspot.com. And all the links to all the things, the Critical Mass Radio, the YouTube, it's all on there. All right, and you can get them on there. Anyone else? Gentleman at the back there.
As a citizen of a town, you can actually join the board of a trust. I know somebody who is just an ordinary person and he's now on the board of the trust. He's got access to the chief executive and so forth. You could also join a political party who are in power. In other words, if you wanted to fight this, there are all sorts of ways in. A guy called Simon Spaniard, I'm sure.
Oh, I know him, yes.
Give you amazing advice on how to get your money and so forth. So that is one option, actually fighting and actually trying to get proper compensation. The other thing is, which I'm interested in, is starting a new life with a new career and maybe, training in something. I mean, have you thought of any option? I mean, I've given you two options, but I mean, where are you going from now?
Well, I am actually, at the moment I am actually training. I'm basically working at the moment now. I haven't thought about a career as such. The problem is that I've watched Simon Spaniard, I've watched his lectures on trust law. I went to one of his live lectures once that was really interesting about the trustee beneficiary link and stuff like that. The problem, what I did was, when all this database stuff came to my attention, I did something as an act of sort of protest, I suppose. I destroyed all my documents of citizenship. I destroyed my passport, my birth certificate, everything. Now, the reason I did this was because I was very annoyed, firstly by the attempt to fingerprint my daughter, and secondly the fact that when I took her to a swimming pool just to get her a season ticket, they asked to see her passport. A passport used to be something you just put in a jar and you just got it out when you went on holiday. Now it's something you need to prove your identity continuously. This is going to feed into a new push for national ID, I think. And so I destroyed those documents as a kind of, I think I wanted to make a kind of like statement of protest. Now, what that means is, this is how bad things have got. In a sense, I'm glad I did it because I can sit here and tell you how bad things have got. You need those documents to apply for most jobs now. You need those documents to apply for benefits. And so actually, I had very difficult starting a career as such without those documents. It's funny, when I joined Portering, I just needed my national insurance number. Now you have to go through a massive recruitment process involving proving who you are with everything. That gentleman there.
When you say you destroyed your birth certificate, have you got the original copy and destroyed it now?
Well, there's a copy in the National Records Office.
Yeah, that one.
I've not done that. No, I destroyed my own copy.
If you get rid of that, then you're a denizen and not a citizen.
Can you actually obtain the copy the government holds?
Yeah, you have to send them an affidavit in order to get it.
Because I sent them like a resignation. I sent them like a resignation letter saying I was resigning as trustee, which is not the same thing, I know. But
if you get that back, that means you can still contract in order to work, but you don't have to pay a lot of taxes.
yeah.
So there are benefits.
Okay, I'll think about that. Thanks. Any other questions? That gentleman there.
Yeah, it's great with your website. Your website is really good. So I think the important thing is getting the truth out in the public domain. I take my hat off to you for what you've done.
Thanks.
It's very courageous of you. But my question was, have you had your website hacked or attempts been made to destroy your website?
There has been attempts made, yeah. Basically, I've been attacked by a very, very dedicated group of trolls. They're quite infamous, actually. They're known as Team Droik. I thought it was just one person, but there had to be more of them because firstly, I think Derek knows about this because they've been on the David Icke forum as well. What they are, they're more than one person. Firstly, because they seem to post every couple of hours, 24/7. It's almost as if they're working shifts. And secondly, I noticed that their spelling and grammar capabilities vary between each post. Like, sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're really bad, and they have different writing styles. So it's the same, they post from the same account as if they're just one person, a user account on a forum. But there's more than one of them, and they constantly bombard my website with material. They call me names. They call me things that I wouldn't repeat in public. Very abusive, very cruel. They talk about how sometimes they attack me as, because my daughter, they say I'm a bad, you know, I'm not fit to be a father, I'm a loony, and I should be locked up. Sometimes they post material such as, you know, what the forums regard as obscene material on my forum, pornographic images, things like that on my forum. And the attempt is they're hoping that the forum host will close down my forum with these material on it. What I've been doing is basically all I can do, they do this in the forum comment, on the blog comment boxes as well. Sometimes I've had to call the police actually because they post threats sometimes. Which of course, I mean, I'm not scared because they'll never count. Anyone who's so gutless that they can only snipe and bribe at you from behind the impunity of a keyboard and monitor. It's far too gutless to come attack you face to face. I mean, he could have come here this evening. One of them could have come here this evening. I never make any secrets about my movements. Everyone knows where I'm going to be at a certain time. If they really want to have it out on me, they can come and meet me and then we can have it out. We can have an argument, we can have a fight, whatever they like. But they won't do that. They want to be able to abuse people secretly and privately from cowering behind this internet. This wonderful freedom the internet gives us. And these people have chosen to abuse it. And I mean, I'm a big, tough, ugly old ex-hospital porter, you know, I can cope with it, but there are people who have committed suicide because of trolls attacking them. They kill themselves because of internet abuse. It's a very serious matter, and I mean, there's evidence of some of these people. I mean, I know people say, well, Ben, you know, it's a bit of a cliche, isn't it? You know, they're paid agents, but there's evidence that the government are using internet agents to harass people they don't like. I mean, the Israelis, I think, are particularly keen on this. They get people from Mossad, you know, they get people in to attack anyone who criticises Israel's actions. Anyone else? Anyone else like to say anything? All right. How much time we got? Is it? Okay. Well, it's been a really lovely evening, and I've really enjoyed it. It's been lovely here talking to you. So, thanks very much. Hospital Porters, Troy and Dignity, Scotland New World Order! Thank you.